You know, stock options, they have this reputation for being super complicated, almost like a secret language for Wall Street insiders. But what if I told you they're just a tool? A really clever way to bet on a stock's future without putting a ton of money on the line? Over the next few minutes, we're going to pull back the curtain and break down exactly how they work, with some simple, real-world numbers.
So let me ask you this. Let's say you are absolutely certain a stock is about to shoot up or maybe even tank. How could you get in on that action with just a little bit of cash while also making sure your potential losses are strictly limited? Well, that's the exact puzzle that stock options were invented to solve. Okay, so options belong to this category of things called financial derivatives. I know, that sounds super technical and intimidating, but all it means is their value is derived from something else. In our case, it's derived from the price of a stock. Just think of them as specialized tools in an investor's toolbox, designed for very specific jobs.
And those jobs really fall into two main camps. Here's an analogy. Imagine you're in a college class. Would you rather lock in a guaranteed B grade right now, no stress, or would you rather take a final exam that could get you either an A or an F? Taking that safe B is like hedging. You're reducing your risk. Going for the A or F, that's speculating. You're taking on more risk for that bigger reward. Options let you do both.
All right, let's get practical. We'll start with the most common reason people use options. You think a stock is about to take off. This is where a little something called a call option comes in.
To make this all make sense, we're going to follow one imaginary company through this whole thing. Let's call it company ABCD.
And as of right now, a single share of ABCD stock costs a nice round $50.
Now you've done your homework, you've read the reports, or maybe you just have a really good gut feeling. You are convinced that this stock is going to go up. So you've got two main paths you can take here. Strategy one is the obvious one. You buy the stock. You shell out $50 for one share. Simple enough. But now look at strategy two. For just $5, you can buy a call option. This gives you the right, and this is key, it's not an obligation, the right to buy that same share later on. Look at that difference in upfront cost, $50 versus $5. Huge.
So what does that $5 option actually buy you? Well, that $5 is called the premium. It's the price of the contract. And this contract gives you the right to buy a share of ABCD at what's called the strike price, which in this case is $60. And you can do that anytime in the next month. You're basically placing a bet that the stock will climb above $60 before that month is over.
All right, let's play this out. Scenario one. You are a genius. Your prediction comes true and the stock goes on a tear, all the way up to $80 a share. Let's see how our two strategies did.
If you just bought the stock, the math is super easy. You bought at 50, you're selling at 80. Boom, that's a $30 profit. Not bad at all on a $50 investment. Now for the option. You use your right to buy the stock at your $60 strike price, and you immediately flip it and sell it for the market price of 80. That's a $20 gain. Now subtract the $5 you paid for the option in the first place, and your net profit is $15. Now you might be thinking, hey, 15 is less than 30, and you're right. But think about your return on what you risked. You put down $5 and you made 15. That's a 300% return. That's the power of leverage.
Okay, but what happens when you're wrong? I mean, it happens to the best of us, right? Let's say instead of going up, the stock completely tanks and ends up at $20 a share.
If you bought the stock at 50, well, ouch. It's now worth 20. You've lost $30. That's a pretty big hit. But what about the call option? What's your loss? Well, the contract gives you the right to buy the stock at $60. The stock is currently trading at 20. Why on earth would you ever exercise that right? You wouldn't. You just let the option expire worthless. And your total loss? It's capped at the $5 premium you paid. That's it. $5. Now you see the power of limiting your risk?
So, we've covered being an optimist, a bull. But what if you're a pessimist? What if you think a stock is headed for a cliff? Let's flip this whole thing around.
This brings us to the other side of the coin. You look at company ABCD at $50 and you think, no way, this thing is totally overvalued. It's going to drop.
To make this bet, you'd use a put option. It's the literal mirror image of a call. It gives you the right to sell a stock at a set price, which is fantastic if you think the actual market price is about to be way, way lower. The contract looks familiar. You pay a $5 premium. But this time, it gives you the right to sell ABCD stock at a strike price of $40 anytime in the next month. So your bet is that the stock is going to fall below 40. And bam, you're right again. The stock collapses to $20. So here's how you cash in. You exercise your option, which lets you sell shares for $40. But wait a second, you don't actually own any shares, do you? No problem. You just go to the open market, buy the shares for the current cheap price of $20, and then immediately use your option to sell them for that $40 price. That's a $20 gain right there. Subtract your $5 premium, and you've made a $15 profit from the stock going down.
Okay, we've looked at a few snapshots of what can happen. Now let's pull back and look at the entire game board for our original call option.
This really lays out the whole journey. Remember, our call option had a $60 strike and a $5 premium. So in step 1, if the stock price is anywhere below $60 at the end, your option is useless. You're out the $5 you paid. For step 2, once the stock price creeps above 60, you start clawing back that initial cost. Step 3 is your break-even point. At $65 a share, the $5 gain from the trade perfectly cancels out your $5 premium. You're flat. And then step 4, that's the fun part. Every single dollar the stock goes above 65 is pure one-for-one profit.
Now, it's really important to remember, this money doesn't just materialize out of thin air. When you buy an option, someone else has to sell it to you. That person is taking the exact opposite side of your bet. They're betting you're wrong. So if you win, they lose. And if you lose, they win. It is a classic zero-sum game.
So, as you can see, options are these incredibly versatile, powerful tools. You can use them to make these high-leverage, speculative bets, or you can use them to play defense, to protect your investments and limit your risk. And that brings us right back to our very first question. But now, it's for you to answer. Are you trying to secure your position, or are you swinging for the fences? When it comes down to it, are you a hedger or a speculator?